All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Mercer FCA podcast, episode 6 with Akira Brown. Akira, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Super excited to be able to have you on, Akira. I have really come to enjoy you for our FCA huddles. You bring a lot to it. You are really speaking up a lot, and add a lot to the conversation every week. So I'm excited, to be able to get to know you better in this format, and I'm excited for everyone else to kind of get to know you as well. So with that, Kira, obviously, like on the track team here for the Mercer Bears. But before we get into college athletics and everything that's with that, take us a little bit back to where you're from and kind of like the family life as well.
Yes, so I'm from Stockbridge, Georgia. It's about an hour away from here in Macon. Um, it's not a really super small city.
Mhm.
It's very developing. When I was younger, it was just a lot of trees. You had like the local schools, but now we're getting stores on every corner,
Mhm.
neighborhoods on every street. Like it's so many people now. So it's a larger community and it's still growing, but it's a great area. I couldn't imagine growing up anywhere else.
Mhm.
Grew up with biologically two siblings, but when I was about 10 years old, my parents had taken in my two cousins, to raise them as
Mhm.
well. So now I grew up in a household with four siblings. And yeah, it really changed my life and my perspective on everything, going from the youngest child to the middle child now. So,
Mhm.
but it was fun. My parents really, raised us in church. Um, I can't even tell you the first time that I went to church. It's been so long ago. Like I was
Sure.
so tiny. But my mom really wanted to push that foundation onto us and really wanted to raise us in a Christian household and um, allow us. She didn't really force it on us, but she allowed us to really see what it's all about and give us that option to, choose God. And I'm
Mhm.
so blessed to have her in my life because without her, I wouldn't know where I would be right now. Just going through all the trials and tribulations that we went through, as a family, and personally as myself, God was always um, that center ground for me, that foundation. I could always go
Mhm.
back to him. So I'm super grateful for that. My family was super supportive as well, seeing my cousins go to church and my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents. So just having that Christian family and, always referring back to God for everything was big for us.
Man, that is wow. That is it like I could. So from the few times that we have already talked during the FCA huddles, I could tell there was a strong sense there that you had a strong background of the faith, and obviously you already telling this story of just can't even like remember the first time being at church. That was like because that's all that you've ever known. It's always being inside the church, which is awesome, man, and it's crazy to think about. That's your life, but man, there's a lot of other people that don't have that. They don't have that backstory. They didn't. They didn't have a strong family that kind of led them into the doors of the church to be able to get them involved with that. So, and that's where I feel like we are to come in. That's where we are called to, to be able to kind of share that example and to kind of lead other people's into that. And man, so that's super cool. I've got to ask this. So, Stockbridge, what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2024 from Woodland High School in
Okay.
Stockbridge. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah, so I had to ask if you went to Stockbridge High because we played Stockbridge in the state championship in 2023. So I wanted to ask if you were a part of that. So that's awesome. So, all right. So now, all right. So growing up in that, like just like you were saying, like, felt like the entire family was always involved in church. Like, was there a steady youth program or like did y'all all kind of go to the big church with everyone else? Like, what was that like every Sunday?
Yeah, so when I was younger, we attended one church, which was closer to Atlanta, but it didn't work out for our family.
Mhm.
My mom really, it was some things that she just didn't like about the church. And we were on the praise team at that church. We dibble dabbled in it a little bit, but
Mhm.
We decided to move churches into our current church, Tabernacle of Praise, which is in McDonough, Georgia, and we absolutely love it. We've been there for over a decade now. So, there at that church, I went to the youth ministry program every Sunday for I don't even know how many years. I would say about 8 years until my senior year, and then I started going to the adult church.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get a more adult perspective as I, transferred over to college and really just wanted a new outlook on life. And I can tell you that was probably the best decision of my life. I'm so glad that we switched church because my pastor is amazing. The community there is amazing. And I do, once I get back home, want to get more involved in the church atmosphere. But as of right now, my mom, she does serve on the nursing ministry there. So she'll go and help out with that part. But with me being in college, it's kind of hard, to stay consistent with that. So I do want to get back into it.
Yeah. So all right. So with that, like just like you were saying, doing, going to like the big church with the adults and, really getting into that style of it. Now, what was the youth program like? Like, were you like, was there a lot of, like, did you ever do youth camps or anything like that? Or was it always just kind of a meeting every Sunday?
So they had a lot going on for the youth ministry. We would have basketball nights, music nights where they'll get artists to come in throughout the week. We will have like glow in the dark parties. We'll have ministry teams that'll go overseas to different countries and help out there. So
Mm-hmm.
they really gave us the opportunity to do any and everything that we could possibly think of as a youth ministry. And it wasn't just on Sundays. We had meetings on Wednesdays for the young women, meetings on Fridays or Saturdays for the young men. So it wasn't just you go to church on Sunday because your parents took you. They
Sure.
give you the opportunity to really be in the atmosphere throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, and learn new things about God. Really build a community as a young adult and children from K through 12th grade. So everybody had something to do there.
Wow, that is, man, that it just sounds awesome, and it's a really cool story that I think you have in terms of, you know starting at another church, but felt like, man, just didn't really feel right there, didn't really feel like that's where God wanted you to be. And like, I think that's a, kind of a common thing that a lot of people go through in terms of, this church can be very popular. A lot of people are really feeling, fulfilled at this church, really loving this pastor and everything that they have. But for some reason, like, you're just not feeling, the same way. Like, sometimes it just works like that, where I feel like, God kind of calls you to other places because that's where he wants you to be. And, obviously, great job by your family and the parents to be able to kind of follow that calling, to be able to find, your church home now, which is, like, exactly what it sounds like. That is a home for you. And, the church is so valuable in that aspect. So, really, really cool story with that. So now let's kind of shift over to the sports side of it. Track athlete now in college, but, what was kind of your sports background as you were growing up?
Yes, so growing up, track was not my first sport at all. Like, if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I was going to be running track in college, I would have said absolutely not.
Mm.
I started playing basketball when I was 5 years old, and that has been the sport of my life. Growing up, seeing my sister play, that's all that I was around. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to play basketball just like her. But it took a turn my senior year in high school, believe it or not. That's when I was really like, okay, basketball is going good for me, but what can I do on the track?
Mm.
And I went out and I set the school record in the 100-meter dash. And that's when the offers started coming in, the calls started coming
Sure.
in. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I can be good at that. And
Mm.
um, I was still a little bit hesitant because I was so stuck on basketball my entire life. Like, I was doing AAU travel ball every single year. I was the best person on my high school basketball team. I was playing varsity all 4 years. So it's just like, that's all that I was around. So even though I was running these insane times in high school, it was still like, is it enough for me to switch that
Mm.
perspective, that I always had that set in my mind that I'm going to go play basketball. So I changed it my senior year and I was like, I'm going to give it a try. And Mercer called and my coach was just like, if you keep running these times, we're going to give you some scholarship money. We want you here running with us. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to lock in. And I kept running the times. And that's when I got my scholarships coming in, my scholarship offers. And I was like, okay, now I got to think about, is this the right fit for me? Is the school going to be good for me? Do they have my major? Do they have the resources for me to do what I want to do when I leave college, And of course, I don't want to be in debt. Like, I don't want to be paying off my tuition for the next 20,
Right.
30 years of my life. So I had to go where, it felt right and set myself up for the long run. That was the biggest thing for me. So, um, yeah, no, track was not my first priority, but I definitely am grateful for the opportunity to be good at the sport. For
Yeah.
God blessed me with that talent that I have, and for me not giving up, on something so grateful and big because my heart was set on something else. So
Sure. Yeah. It kind of reminds me now of this, the story of changing, trying to change churches where, you felt like, okay, this is where, this is a church where I feel like God wants me, but then all of a sudden it just doesn't feel right. It kind of feels like God's calling you somewhere else. And it sounds very similar here to your story with basketball going over to track. And so with that, was it always two sports throughout high school, or did you play, were you involved in anything else?
yeah, so middle school, I was doing a little bit of everything. I was doing gymnastics, cheer. I even dabbled into a little softball, practices here and there. But I was
Sure.
like, that's
Yeah.
let's stop that. And when I got to high school, then it was just like, okay, I'm gonna narrow it down, and it was just basketball in the fall, track in the spring, and I kind of just went back and forth with that. And it was a lot of injuries in that too.
Mm,
A lot of people they don't really hear about that too much. Oh, she's doing this sport and she's doing that sport. Why don't she just pick between the two? And it's just because of the love of the game, the love of the sport. But a lot of injuries did come with that. And that too also went into my decision of choosing, what my body was going to look like in the long run. Do I want to keep playing basketball and getting hit every game, thrown
sure.
around? Do I want to stick with track, So, um, yeah, that's pretty much how I ended up narrowing the
That's a
two.
great point, because I did want to bring this up. So I'm assuming you were a guard in basketball. This is not, because you're definitely not the biggest person. So I can imagine whenever you say getting, kind of hit on every play, I would imagine it was pretty physical for you out there.
Yes, I was always one of the smallest people on the court, but I was the feistiest. Like, you can't bully me now. You might push me
Right.
around here, but I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show you I'm strong too. I might be little, but don't let it fool you.
There you go, man. That is awesome. I can only imagine what you were like on the court then. Okay, so now, all right. So, like you were saying, you were strong in church even throughout all of this, throughout high school and everything, and doing multiple sports and playing AAU stuff during the summer. I can imagine it was kind of, it's almost a full-time job, trying to do that, especially trying to do it with two different sports and travel and everything else with that. And so what was, how was your faith life during that time? Like, still being pretty actively involved with church and the youth, or was, did sometimes you have to kind of pick and choose?
Yeah, so it was definitely a more pick and choose kind of thing. And me being so young, I was just like, God understands if I go play basketball this Sunday.
Sure.
I missed one session of church. It's okay. But the older I got, the more I realized like I can't do any of this without him. So I really had to sit down and focus and be like, okay, I'm gonna prioritize God. I need to spend more time with him. I'm not spending enough time with him. And not just when things weren't going right, because a lot of things went wrong in high school and middle school.
Sure.
You go through a lot in sports. And so just staying in your faith and trusting the process and knowing that, he'll guide me through anything that I choose to go through. That was my biggest thing. So I really just had to take a step back from sports, when I did have that off time and really focus on him and recenter,
Mm.
not just showing up on church on Sundays, but reading my Bible throughout the week, praying throughout the week and really just centering everything around him, trusting that, you know, anything that I do and wherever I go from here, even if I have sports or not, that he's going to be here with me through it all. So, no, I would say middle school was probably the furthest that I got away from him. And God, I would not go back to that time because, like, I wasn't really like a bad child or, you know, did
Sure.
anything crazy, but I also wasn't very God centered. Like, you can tell I was just doing stuff just because, I had no guidance really. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I had guidance, but, it just wasn't a big thing for me at that moment because I was so sucked into gymnastics and cheer and basketball and track. So it was just like I was just doing stuff. Oh, I'm not gonna go to church this Sunday. I'm gonna sleep in because I'm tired now. And like,
Right.
or I'm in school and I'm playing around. Just little stuff that added on to it. So I really had to just gather my focus back together in the high school setting and really just restart again, restart from where my
Mhm.
parents have raised me to be, in the church and following God. And if things aren't going right, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's not the end of the world.
Oh, man. So, like I've shared with y'all, the last 15 years, I taught sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. So I know what you say whenever you say it's an awkward, it's just an awkward age, it's an awkward time frame. And but I mean, I can genuinely say that it's an incredible uh it is just an incredible experience for me and for other teachers that I work with to be able to see some of the students that we taught in those years, but then after their senior year or now that they are in college, and it's like I can't believe you have grown up this much because you were wild back in those years. So, it like I can completely see that. Middle school is just, man, like I just think it's a tough time for everybody, and everybody's trying to find their way, trying to find, like in today's world, they kind of throw out, they try to find their identity, and try to figure out their pathway and going into high school. Is it sports? Is it academics? And so, um, but obviously, like I feel like God was able to kind of lead you through that as well. And, having the strong church family, church home, just like we said earlier, obviously helped carve a pathway for you. And so, at your school, be it during like the middle school or even at high school, did y'all have an FCA program and were you involved with it?
Yes, so middle school we had an FCA program and they hosted it early in the mornings because middle school, I think we didn't start till like 9 o'clock. So we would get up and go to FCA from like 8 to 8:45 or 8:55, something like that. And they had like donuts and we would read, a verse or two and really just break it down, or the leader would break it down to us on, what God is trying to say to us. And I feel like a lot of us weren't really there for the right reasons. I feel like a lot of kids just showed up for the donuts, and we're in middle school, so I
Yeah.
understand. But at the same time, you did have those few people who were there, to really learn
Mhm.
about God and really change their lives. So I wouldn't say that it was as serious as the one here at Mercer is, but when I was in high school, we didn't have a FCA. And if we did, nobody knew about it because, I
Yeah.
didn't know about it. But yeah, we didn't really have one in high school. So that was more of like if you want to learn about God, you got to really do it outside of the church. And that was during a time where they were really pushing, religions and faiths not in the schools. They
Sure.
really did
Yeah.
not want that to be in the school atmosphere at all. So you really had to be careful with what you did in high school setting just because the conflicts with, the Board of Education and their
Yeah.
rules. So, yeah.
Man, that's that. Okay, so I can tell you quickly a story that we had to do, and this was years ago at the middle school. But again, like I was sharing with y'all before, I would lead the FCA huddles, and so we would meet every Friday morning at 7 a.m. And so school started at 7:30, so the kids would have to get there a little bit earlier. We would meet in the gym, and that 7 a.m. was also the time that if you rode the bus, you were able to get off the bus and come into school. And so for the students, all right, so like unless you were coming early just to come to FCA, you had the option. You could either go to homeroom for 30 minutes, or you could come down to the gym for FCA. And so obviously everybody chose to come down to the gym for FCA. And so we would pack out the gym and we would have 150 students every Friday morning. But like you said earlier, it was almost like, do they really like, are they coming for the right reasons, or are they just, trying to skip class? And so then as the huddle leader, you have to make the choice of like, okay, how can I reach them? Like what can we do to try to make them grasp what we're trying to say? Because if we have a guest speaker in, and we have half of, we have 75 students that aren't really paying attention or distracting other people, and it's like, man, they're kind of missing the point of what we're trying to do. So it's a really fine line there in terms of FCA in the school, and when you have to, when you try to plan for the meeting, so that way, you can basically get the most out of what you're trying to do, because there's a lot of times where, like you don't really have a lot of time. So it's, time is very important. So you try to get the most out of it. And so, that's, kind of the hard, kind of the challenge of doing FCA inside the school setting, is, having to kind of plan around that and still be able to reach the students that you were trying to reach. And so, all right. So now for you, going into high school, like you said, didn't really have an FCA, or if you did, like you obviously didn't really know about it or anything like that. So did you have, with those sports teams you were involved, track and basketball, did you have teammates that were, involved in church, and did y'all try to do anything as a team, kind of build your faith?
Yeah, so my freshman and sophomore year, we weren't really we didn't really talk about God too much. It was more of a just adjusting as a team, because we had a lot of coaching changes and player changes. So it was a lot going on in that aspect that we really, I wouldn't say he wasn't like a main priority, but we just didn't give a lot of attention to God. But my junior year, we had a shift where we would pray before the games. We would try to go to church together on Sundays, really just trying to slowly but surely bring him into the atmosphere, because we really needed it as a team. But my senior year, that's when we really started to, up our game a little more. We were going to church. Our parents would pray over us. They would have like um, times where we would go and we would talk to the youth minister at my church, and he would just be super supportive of us. Whenever we needed anything, he was there for us. He was praying for us, and really just showing support of our program and what we had going on. And just us being seniors, we really took that leadership role to really, let our younger teammates know that none of this would be possible without him. So don't take that for granted. I know that, I'm taking you to my church, but, don't see that as, oh, I'm just going somewhere, praise God, da, da, da. And then when we leave, you don't get nothing out of it. Like, I really want you to see that this can really change your life. This can really change our team as a whole, everything from start to beginning. So really just sitting down and focusing on God was really didn't come up a lot until my senior year, but I really wish that we did start off my freshman year. I feel like things would have changed a whole lot, not just as a team, but, coaching wise and community wise, we would have had a whole lot more support than what we did. But, you know, things happen for a reason, it was God's timing. I'm glad that it happened before I left and not after I left, because we needed it. And I'm forever grateful for the community that we did build my senior year. So.
Man, come on. That's awesome. And, it just makes me think of, maybe, again, I don't know how close you are with, the current team at the high school now, but maybe your senior year, after you kind of built that, the juniors and sophomores kind of took that lead and maybe tried to follow that. And, even like you said, really wish you'd have had it your freshman year, but even though you didn't, kind of was a part of the start of it, maybe your senior year. And that was, could potentially lead to salvation for somebody on this team in the future years. So, never underestimate what the impact is of what you're doing, because you don't think it's, as long as you wish it could have been or anything like that. So, man, that could be an amazing testimony for somebody one day in that program at that high school, and you were a part of that foundation to maybe get that going with the basketball team and stuff. So, that could be a very, very cool testimony, like I was saying. So, all right. So now with that, so with playing basketball, running track, heavily involved with that. You talked a little bit about this earlier in terms of the scholarships slowly started coming in. First off, so it's going to be a two-part question. First, like you said, your senior year, all of a sudden you're breaking records in the 100-meter. My first question is, were you always like having that, kind of top end speed, or did this gift all of a sudden just, man, now all of a sudden I'm breaking some big time numbers here? Secondly, once the scholarship started kind of rolling in, how tough was that process trying to determine where to go?
Yeah, so funny story. I've always been fast. Growing up, I was terrified of dogs. So I was always running around the neighborhood from dogs. And that's really, really when I realized, like, okay, I'm kind of fast.
Man, I was not expecting that to be the reason of the speed, but that's awesome.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm kind of fast. So, going on the playground and outside to play with my friends, I was always faster than the boys. I don't know why, but
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
always faster than the boys. And I'm like, okay, 7th grade year, I'm going to run track. Ran track, went all the way to region, came second in the region, first year, never ran track a day in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
8th grade year, COVID hit, so I didn't get to run, but I came back my freshman year of high school and instantly made varsity. I was already on the relay teams, went to state. I went to state all 4 years of high school, placed top 8 every year. And my senior year, I placed 4th in the 100 and 5th in the 200, second in the 4x1. So that's really when I was like, okay, I got to be serious about all of this. There's no more fun and games, no more just running just to run because you're fast. We really have to lock in. That's when I got a trainer. Really just taking it very serious for myself. So it's not like it was, snap of a finger, it all just clicked. It was more of a gradual thing, step by step by step until I got to the more elite level and I had no choice but to lock in on it, and really not take my talent for granted, but take advantage of it, and put it to great use. And so once I got to that point, the offers started coming in and the college coaches started calling, and, from both aspects, from basketball and from track. So it's like, okay, which one will you feel comfortable doing for the next 4 years of your life?
Yeah.
And where do you want to be? And I knew that I didn't want to be too far from home, not just yet, maybe for grad school, but not yet. So just having those in-state options was really how I narrowed it down for the first part. And then Mercer offered me the most money first, and they seemed to be the most invested in me, not only as an athlete, but as a student. And that always came first for me. My grades always come first. And it just felt more like a home for me because my parents, they met here in Macon, Georgia. They grew up here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So my grandparents live 15 minutes down the street. My aunt is 15 minutes in the opposite direction. So it's just like, I'm at home. I feel comfortable. If I ever need anything, I'm able to have those resources to get what I need. And my coach is super supportive of me. Last year wasn't a great year for me in track, but he has always shown support and that he cares about me starting in the recruitment process. So yes, the scholarship money was a big factor. I'm not paying for anything here at Mercer, thank God, because I don't know if I would even still be here if I were, because tuition here is high.
Sure. Yeah.
Super high. So
Very high.
um But yeah, so it's not just about the scholarship money, but it's also about the community here and, the support that I get here. And my teammates are amazing. I love my teammates and the friends that I met here. So I'm very grateful for the decision that I made. And it took a lot of praying on it, honestly, because I didn't know, even with everything that they've shown me and given me, I still had, that little bit of doubt that, am I making the right decision? But just praying on it, God really just kept giving me the signs that this is where I'm supposed to be. And I'm glad that I chose and I listened to him. Um, and here I am.
Amen, man. Oh yeah. All right. So I mean, like you kind of touched on this, and so the academic side of it. What are you trying to pursue here in terms of the degree, and then what are you trying to do with that after college?
Yes, so I'm a kinesiology major. It's more of sports medicine. It's a newer major, so not many people really know about it. Um, but I really want to do athletic training. Growing up, I've had some of the best athletic trainers throughout my injuries, super supportive, super caring, super loving, and they always put their athletes first. And so I always aspired to be, someone like them for athletes, somebody that my athletes can trust, if anything is not going the way, they get hurt or mentally they just need somebody there for them. I want to be that person that's there for them and show them the way, like anything is possible. Like you're at a bump right now, but you can always get over that hump, You can do great things in life, not just there to help them physically, but emotionally and mentally, somebody that they can trust in
Mm.
their community while they're doing sports. And so I do want to do athletic training. Once I graduate here at Mercer, I want to go to grad school for sports medicine, hopefully the AT route. I was thinking about um, physician's assistant to do more of the surgical aspect of it,
Mhm.
but I think I want to do more of, I want to be on the field, be in the action, be with the athletes one on one in that environment. So, yeah.
Man, oh man, that is awesome. So yeah, kinesiology. So I was a health and PE major at Georgia, and so we had tons of kinesiology stuff and stuff that we had to do as well. So, kind of right up my alley with that on some of it, and then you completely surpassed the rest of it. But like once we started going in, more of the coaching route, y'all are still going with all the science and everything else. So you kind of surpassed everything with health and PE. But I do know a little bit about it. So oh man, that is awesome, and so. All right. So now, so with that, obviously you're now fully invested here, running track for the school. You like already taught a little bit about it, the like academic side of it. What are your goals for this season? Like you said, last season, wasn't necessarily a great year for you. What are you trying to accomplish this year? And what are your goals for FCA on the campus this year as well?
Yes. So, academically, of course, I want to make Dean's List again. Um, and I really just want to learn and absorb more than I did the year prior to. I feel like taking all the science classes and all the math classes, you can really get caught up in just memorizing things. I really want to get to learn more than what I did my first year here. And um, hopefully I can graduate with a 4.0. That's the goal. Athletically, I want all the records. Like,
Come
I left high
on.
school
That's
with the
awesome.
I want the records before I graduate here. So that's my goal. I don't want to just win conference. Conference comes first, but I want all the school records too. So those are my athletic goals. And as far as FCA, obviously, I know you mentioned that, the people before me on the podcast were saying that they wanted one person from every team, but I don't want just one person from every team. I want us to have 50 consistent people coming to the meetings at least. If we can build that and show our community that, athletes with our crazy schedules, we can still show up for God and show up for ourselves consistently. That'll grow and bring in more people over time. So I just want our group to be large. I want it to be big, the biggest FCA group that in the nation, in the world, if possible. That's really the goal for us.
Amen, man, that is awesome. All right, so my first follow up to this, as you were saying, the goals athletically with you wanting all the numbers, all the records. Do you have these records written down anywhere that you constantly look at all the time?
Yes, so I have the times that I want to run to beat the records.
Hmm.
I don't want to just beat them, I want to surpass them. So
Yeah.
my goals are for the 100, I want to run 11:2 before I graduate
Yeah.
at the absolute minimum. For the 200, I want to run a 22 if possible. I know it's possible. 22:9 is going to be my goal, and I know it's hard, but I know I can do it. So
Mhm.
22:9 for the 200, and then for our 4x1 team, I want us to push running a 44:43 for our team.
Oh,
So
man, you got the numbers memorized, and this is, oh man, the dedication that I'm seeing already. So this is, like I've told y'all a little bit that I'm a like Olympic weightlifter, and so like I do like a bunch of weightlifting training, and so something that our coach always talks about is like go go check out the rankings, see everybody that's in front of you, and whatever their numbers are, write it down in red lipstick on the mirror in the bathroom. And so that way you can see it every day. You can see the numbers that are in front of you, the numbers that you have to hit to beat the next person, to just slowly mark your way all the way up to the top spot. And so, like to be able to see you basically already doing that with these numbers is awesome. And I already know that that's going to trickle down with the team. The team is going to be able to see this dedication and this focus from you, and they're going to get inspired by it too. They're going to get motivated, and man, I am so excited for y'all this year because I can tell you are geared up and ready for it, and so that is super cool. So all right, so the last question that I always like to ask: what is your favorite Bible verse? What is your favorite Bible? I'm sorry. What is your favorite Bible book? What is your favorite Bible story? Who is your favorite Bible person?
yes, so my favorite Bible verse, I'm going to start with that one,
Okay.
is Romans 8:18. A friend of mine just sent that to me about a week ago. Pretty much just saying, yeah, the struggles that we're suffering from now don't compare to the joy that,
Mm,
will come later. And so that's really just what I've been focusing on now is, the season that I'm in now will not last forever.
yeah.
Good will come out of this. So that would be my favorite verse currently. My favorite story would be the story of Ruth, just because her loyalty, her
Yeah.
faithfulness. I'm so big on loyalty and having faith in God. Like people take that for granted. They take that, it's in this world, in this generation, loyalty is so, put on the back burner. Like
Sure.
nobody really knows the true meaning of that, or they really don't display too much of that. And so I really want to just tone in back onto the loyalty. That goes a long way. Um, it ties in respect and love and faithfulness and just really all of the aspects that people look for in a character really tones into loyalty. Like that's the root of it all. If you don't have loyalty, then what do you have?
Right. Man.
And
Yeah.
so um and then my favorite book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite book would be Proverbs is hard to unpack. I'm not gonna lie. It's so many hidden messages and so much wisdom that comes out of that book.
Amen.
And I've read it like 2 or 3 times now, just try not to miss anything out of that book. So
Mhm.
Proverbs would probably be my favorite book right now. Um, just because, as a young woman, I really just want to do things right. I want to do
Yeah.
things God's way. And that's a starting point for me.
Yeah.
If I can just learn what he wants me to do and how he wants me to, walk in
Yeah.
faith and in his name, I can, all the other things will come with that. I have to start
Yeah.
with the basics first and build upon that. So
Yeah.
that's my favorite book.
Man, that look, yeah, I can definitely say with Proverbs, it is one where I know in one of the small groups that we had one time, we were trying to read through Proverbs, like read, I think like every day read another chapter, and we were kind of doing that as a group. And I was like, man, you could easily spend like an hour just on one chapter because you like even one, two lines each verse, like I mean, you could just go like literally, like you could spend 10 minutes on every one of those, thinking about all the examples of, how you should apply this in your daily life. Like it's so profound. It's so simple, but yet so profound in just the way it is written and, the way we can use it every day for us. Um, So yeah, so man, really good answers. Ruth is awesome. Ruth is actually the middle name of our daughter, because of because the story of Ruth, and how awesome that is, and just like I said, being loyal, and especially in college world, college athletics world, coaching world, being loyal, like you don't really see that often anymore. Like, it's always the next big thing, up and leaving. And so man, so like to be able to have you, say that and call that out, which is it's a very underappreciated value in today's world, just like you were saying. So man, Akira, I am glad we did this first thing in the morning. I don't think I'm gonna need any caffeine for the rest of the day, because I am super jacked up from hearing your story, from hearing how you're attacking your goals. Your faith is amazing, and just like I said with our huddle, like I feel like you're speaking up all the time in the huddle, and I think everybody in the group is getting a ton out of the stuff you were saying, because it's definitely hitting home, because it's personal to you, and if it's something you're going through, I would imagine it's something every one of us is going through in our own worlds as well. So keep on doing that, because I'm very excited just to be able to hang around you more now.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, last thing, Akira, I'm gonna throw this out there, and I know I've been telling y'all with the huddle as well, but we are doing a little bit of a campaign here on the podcast, where we're doing trying to do some online giving. So for those that are watching the podcast, the QR code is up there. You can scan it, but you can donate now to FCA on the campus of Mercer, where we are trying to get like a dozen families to commit to giving to $40 a month. So $40 a month to be able to commit to that. And we're looking for a dozen families. And check this out, like Akira, this is super awesome. I had someone reach out to me over the weekend, and someone that I did not know, someone that they heard the podcast of a friend, and they were listening to it. They've already caught up with everybody's story, and they were just inspired by it. And they sent a check for a full year's worth of a $40 a month, and somebody that I've never even met before. And like, again, like I was able to share on the very first episode of the podcast, kind of my story, and how I feel like God truly led me here, and it was a true calling. And whenever you get stuff like that, that's like validation of, man, God is at work, and He is not only working through, FCA, and He's working through us and every conversations that we are having. But now that we have it online now, and people can now hear the conversations that we are having, He's working through other people's lives as well. And so instead of a dozen, we need 11 families now. We're down to 11 families to commit to that. So if you want to give, again, you go to my.fca.org, type in Bud Pierce, type in Mercer FCA. Any of that, I'm sure, will lead you to where you need to go, and sign up to give $40 a month. Hey, you can sign up to give $80 a month, and we can knock out 2 of the families right there as well. So again, God is working, God is moving. And Akira Brown, women's track athlete for the Mercer Bears, episode number 6. Akira, this has been an awesome podcast, and I can't wait to have you on again as well.
I can't wait. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Hey, thank y'all for joining us again. Podcast comes out every Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. And so we will see you next week here on the Mercer FCA podcast.